All right, so we're diving into this idea of minding my own business disease, or MMOB as they're calling it. Kind of sounds like something going around the department, right?
Definitely kitschy.
But we're not talking about like the flu or anything. This is more of a cultural thing,
Yeah.
a bug that can spread, especially in sterile processing.
Yeah, it's interesting how something we learn as kids, that whole don't be a tattletale thing, it can really backfire in a place like SPD.
Right. It's like we're taught to stay in our lane, focus on our own little tasks.
But when you're dealing with instruments and trays that directly impact patient safety, tunnel vision like that can be dangerous.
Exactly.
And the consequences, if errors aren't caught, they can be pretty serious.
We're not talking about minor stuff here.
Right, like a missed step during decontamination or skipping a lumen inspection. Those things can have huge repercussions for patients later on.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking infections, surgical site complications, even potential outbreaks. It's a lot of responsibility. Our listeners, the sterile processing techs, they're really holding patient safety in their hands every day.
And that's where this MMOB disease can take hold. You see a coworker maybe cutting corners
Yeah.
or not following a step properly, and you know you should say something.
That little voice is like, hey, this could be bad.
Yeah, but then the doubts start creeping in.
What if I'm wrong? What if they get mad? What if I seem like a know-it-all?
It's that internal struggle, that fear of making waves, that lets MMOB fester.
And I get it. No one wants to be the bad guy, especially in SPD where things are already so fast-paced.
Everyone's under pressure.
Exactly. So we need to create a culture where speaking up is seen as a good thing. Like it's about responsibility and looking out for each other, not being a tattletale or trying to get someone in trouble.
We need to reframe this whole idea of minding your own business.
Totally.
Imagine this. You see a coworker about to walk into a room clearly marked biohazard. Wouldn't you say something, even if it was a little awkward?
Of course. You'd feel obligated to warn them.
Because in that situation, staying silent, it's way riskier than speaking up.
Absolutely.
And it's the same in sterile processing. We have to shift from minding my own business to minding everyone's business.
Because at the end of the day, patient safety affects all of us.
It's recognizing that we're a team working towards the same goal.
And like any good team, success depends on communication, mutual respect, and having each other's backs.
Exactly.
Which brings us to leadership. They have a huge role in setting this tone. Think about it if you're a tech and you see a mistake, but you're afraid to report it because you'll be punished. Are you really going to speak up?
Probably not. That's why leaders in SPD need to foster an environment where errors are seen as learning opportunities, not reasons to blame someone.
It's about creating a safe space to admit mistakes, ask questions, and offer feedback without being afraid.
Because in the end, we're all human. We all mess up sometimes.
It happened.
But what sets a good team apart is the ability to learn from those mistakes, to support each other, and to always strive to get better.
And that's what we're going to dig into in this deep dive. How to move from a culture of fear and silence to a culture of open communication and support, where everyone shares responsibility for patient safety.
It's a process, for sure, but it's a journey worth taking, not just for our patients, but for the whole team.
Absolutely.
And one of the big things we have to overcome is that fear of being labeled a snitch or a troublemaker.
Yeah, it's like this unspoken rule
It's really ingrained.
that if you point out a problem, you become the problem.
Exactly. And it's interesting because if you look at other successful organizations, like sports teams or innovative companies, even military units, they actually emphasize speaking up, calling out risks before they become major issues.
Right. It's understanding that staying silent doesn't help anyone. It actually puts everyone at greater risk.
And that's where this idea of psychological safety is so important.
Creating an environment where people feel safe to voice concerns without being judged or retaliated against.
Absolutely, because if you're constantly worried about being punished for making a mistake or pointing out someone else's, you're not going to take risks, you're not going to innovate, and you're definitely not going to speak up when something seems off.
And that's when things really get dangerous.
It creates this culture of fear and silence.
Where errors get swept under the rug,
Yeah.
problems just fester.
And eventually something blows up.
And in sterile processing, that blow-up can have terrible consequences for patients.
Exactly. But it's not about creating a blame culture either.
Right.
It's about shifting the focus from who messed up to why it happened and how can we prevent it from happening again.
And this is something the source material talks about, this idea of leadership being crucial in creating that psychological safety. They use the term servant leader to describe the ideal leader in SPD.
That's a great term. The idea that a leader is there to serve their team, to build an environment where everyone feels supported and valued so they can do their best work.
Yeah, and a big part of that is leading by example. So if you're a leader in SPD and you make a mistake, what do you do?
You own it, you acknowledge it, you apologize if necessary. And most importantly, you use it as a learning moment for yourself and for the team.
It shows everyone that it's okay to be human. We all make mistakes.
It's about learning and growing,
And it builds trust and transparency.
which is so essential for a strong team.
Because if you can't trust your leader to be honest and vulnerable, how can you trust them to support you when you make a mistake?
Right, and that trust is crucial in sterile processing.
Where the stakes are so high.
And the margin for error is tiny.
Think about it. If you're a tech and you know your supervisor has your back, that they'll support you even if you mess up. You're going to feel much more comfortable speaking up when you see something wrong.
You're more likely to take that risk because you know it'll be handled in a supportive way.
Exactly.
And that's how you create a culture of continuous improvement, where everyone is always trying to learn and grow, to do their best for the patients.
It comes back to shifting that mindset. From minding my own business to minding everyone's business.
Because in sterile processing, everyone's business is patient safety.
And it's not just about calling out mistakes.
Right.
It's also about being open to feedback ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Being able to take constructive criticism, even if it's a little tough to hear, it can really help us grow and learn.
Sometimes a little discomfort can lead to big improvements.
For sure.
And this minding everyone's business idea, it kind of creates this positive feedback loop.
How so?
Where you're not only looking out for your colleagues, you're also open to them looking out for you.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It builds this sense of accountability, like we're all in it together.
Exactly.
Like having a whole team of extra eyes and ears, making sure everything is done right.
And that's what ultimately keeps patients safe.
Right, that high standard.
So they can heal and recover without complications.
It all comes back to the patient.
It's like that saying, the patient comes first.
More than just a saying, though.
Right, it's got to be a mindset.
A guiding principle for every decision we make.
And when we really embrace that mindset,
It changes our whole approach.
how we communicate, how we work together, how we handle problems.
It all shifts.
It's like we're all part of this big web,
Each person is a thread.
and every thread matters.
If one weakens, the whole thing is affected.
And that brings us back to MMOB disease.
It thrives in isolation, in silence.
But when we bring it out into the open,
When we acknowledge it, we start to fight back.
we build immunity as a team.
And most importantly, we create a safer environment for our patients.
So to wrap up this deep dive, we want you to think about one thing. What's one small step you can take to foster this culture of open communication in your SPD?
Remember, even small actions can make a big difference.
It's about creating a safer and more supportive environment for everyone.
Because ultimately, it's not about minding my own business. It's about minding the business of caring for our patients.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.